Can you give us an example of how you helped one of your writers sell their scripts and get a movie made?
So yeah, I have a project that I sold, and we basically worked on developing the pitch together, and we brought together the right producers and team and made attachments. And we had to pitch on Zoom, which made it very challenging because this was during the pandemic. So this was a project to just which made it crazy is we sold a movie during a like dystopian, event. Like we can't leave our place. So we prepped it on Zoom, and it was extremely like challenging because, a lot of the process of selling an idea is very physical. You're in a room together, and it's something that you have to have a presence. But when you're on a laptop like Max Headroom and you're just like a floating head, it makes it infinitely more difficult to sell a project. So, we had a tough situation. How do we make something really good? Because we had, a studio executives that were going to be on a Zoom call. So we decided that, the pitch that we just make 20 minutes, make it just the best 20 minutes possible. Because, at a certain point, the attention span of most people starts diminishing, especially on a screen. If you're in the physical world, it's so much easier to just like be compelling and have that kind of like energy that everyone feeds from. But when you're looking at like, your laptop, it's like completely different. So we decided that, making it shorter was better. And the goal was in the questions and answers, we'd be able to activate more interest and get more information. So we shortened this pitch way smaller than we'd ever do in a normal event. We'd make it much longer if we were in that room. So we shortened it, really practiced it. We ran the pitch through multiple people. We actually had, and I think some people don't get it, is that like pitching is like writing. You have to iterate. Like I think some people think you just show up and pitch. But actually pitching is kind of when you think of like a performer, like a comedian, they might even record their sets just to hear, do they hit all the beats? Does it really resonate? Or a musician could perform at a show and then see people and really get a sense of, does that set work? So we had the writer go through all these cycles of prepping with different types of people because we didn't know the energy that was going to be given in that. And ultimately through defining the size of the pitch, prepping through multiple people during this horrible event that everybody was living in, and we were able to sell a movie despite those challenges, and it resonated perfectly with the buyers. So I mean, that is an event that like collectively we weren't looking at the pitch as something that's ready made, and I think that's a problem with a lot of filmmakers. They're like, just get ready for the pitch. But a pitch, you should even, to me, look at it like a script. You get the script, you kind of come up with the idea, and you just refine it, and you iterate, and you just keep making it better and better. A pitch should be the same way. You should be able to try it on different people, workshop it, see where people are at, and don't just pitch people that are already working on it. Like if you're just, I just talked to my collaborator, you should get individuals who are new to what you're talking about, and they should have notes for you. What ideas resonated? Do you rush by exposition? How did it develop? And really just making sure that the timing is right. And, is it exciting? Do you get all the information across? And we really had this criteria, and ultimately it was successful because we were taking that seriously. I have a TV pitch going out soon. We're doing the same thing because right now we're still, getting past, this horrible situation to ultimately be in the real world. But I think that was the valuable, experience, was taking that part of the equation as seriously as writing that amazing script. Because if it's just the pitch, it's about trust. Why should we trust you to be the one that gets hired to, write something? And you need to put that work in, because the person that you're pitching to, if they're valuable, if they're like high powerful, executive on the top of a major company, they don't have a lot of time. So you can't just kind of waltz in and throw ideas around. You have to like really just shit test your presentation to the point where it's fantastic. It doesn't matter how long you've done it too. Like it's not just doing it once. Maybe you do it 10 times, maybe you do it more, but it has to be the point where a new person who's never heard of this project sees it. And if it's done on Zoom, if that's where the situation is, and it's fine, you move them. You get them to go, this is something that I want to get behind. And that's what was successful. You know, I sold multiple projects. So I think that you have to, when you sell these new, films or TV shows, you want to make sure that the energy that of your idea is transferring and the information is to people who don't have the same level of relationship that you do. And it could have been harder during that time to make this work because it was so unnatural to everybody involved. But once we were okay with it, we're like, this is our frame, a screen, this is the attention span. We designed it to the user, to the individual who has the power to say yes. And that's why I was successful. And that's my role in this project was making sure that the pitch was ready for showtime.
Do you have the writer film themselves and then you critique it, or they even watch themselves back to see how are they coming across in the pitch?
I don't have them look at themselves on video, but what I do is I firm it up with them, and then I just recommend them just testing it on people they respect. So get to the right length and just hitting those beats over and over again. It's almost like you want to make it feel like it's natural, but it's not. It's designed. You know when you do a certain expression, or when you pause, they're going to lean in. It's so designed that you're kind of taking them on a journey, but you know where the tracks are.
Do you think most writers take too long to get to the point? Because by nature, they love writing, they love communicating, and they need to shorten their message?
I think there's no one, experience I've had on the pitching front, but I do think that it's very important, and that the people that you want to bring on as stakeholders in your movie or your TV show, they have a little window, and you have to get them to care, because they might not start caring. You have to take them from potentially apathy to really being invested, and that's the journey you have to take them on. And it's really, there's no one approach, and there's no one writer with a certain temperament. It's all across the board. But the more you cycle through feedback and really perfect it, you have a better chance of resonating with the right people.
So a great writer and a great pitch turns apathetic people into sitting up straight in their chair?
I mean, they may not give you any tells, because an individual might just be like this the whole time. So you might not know. It's not, to be totally clear, it's not they're going to applause or anything. They give you a big applause at the end of it. They might give you a poker face, okay? Because maybe they don't want to give you anything during this time frame, because when you sell something, they're spending money, and maybe it's an investor, maybe it's someone who, has a fund, or maybe they know someone with money. Whoever it is, someone's taking a risk. So you might not get like any tells that it's resonating. You might just get a very apathetic expression. But if they have all the information they need to make a decision, once it's over, behind closed doors, they might say it was pretty cool. But they might not give that to you during that time, because they might lose power. They have more of ability to really think it through if there's a wall that's up over here, because then they could think about it. They could talk to collaborators and really discuss the opportunity. Doesn't matter if they have a reaction or not. You've tested it on all the right, individuals that give you feedback. So regardless of the emotional reaction of who's listening at the end of the day is you're ready. That's what matters.
Almost envision yourself at like a live poker. You're watching live poker on TV, and you see these people with the dark shades and the cap pulled down, and almost envision yourself pitching in front of them, and there's going to be no reaction. No, they're not even going to scratch their nose to give away some kind of discomfort or nervousness.
Absolutely, but there could be another type of, potential buyer who talks all the time. So you just want to be able to test your pitch out on all sorts of personalities if you don't know who you're pitching. Is it just going to be like a quiet, room that has low energy? That could be the case. Or somebody keeps cutting you off. You have to be ready and flexible to get your message out in a confident, professional way.
So there could be high energy, hyper, almost like a caged animal type of a pitch, not on the writer's part, but of the person being pitched.
You just don't know who they are.
Right. Okay.
I mean, it's just like anybody. We all have different personalities. If you don't know who you're pitching, you could be ready for any type of energy. You pull them in and they really feel something. You might know, you might not know. It doesn't matter. You just need to know you're ready for it.
With this call, this Zoom pitch that you're talking about, how many people were on the call, and then was the project purchased after the Zoom call, like immediately after?
I think it might have been 5 or 6. I don't really completely remember it, everybody that was on it, but I feel it was about 5 or 6, and it wasn't bought on the call. There was we heard later, typically I haven't experienced anything that just happens in the moment where somebody would commit to that. It typically has a bit of a delay where people have to regroup.
Like, do you know how much, did you hear maybe a month later, a week later?
I think it was about a week or so.
Okay, so you didn't lose too much sleep, but
no,
you were waiting, and then once, do you get an email that says it's a go? We're having people draw up contracts, or do they have more questions?
There really weren't any more questions on this event. They didn't continue to pull information from the players involved in this project. It was established on that one pitch.
Oh, okay. So then the email was basically, we love it. It's a green light.
Yeah, the phone call was like that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Nice. How long was the final curated pitch?
Are you talking about the pitch that does that include the Q&A afterwards?
Oh, so there's the pitch, and then the 5 people.
And there's a Q&A. Well, some people who are being pitched have some questions, but it wasn't a lot. I would say in total, I think that this went for about 30 minutes. Because what happens also too, it starts with a little bit of small talk. So first is the small talk, then there's a pitch, and then there's a little questions and answers. And that was it. So it was about a half an hour.
And this is a silly question, but in a time of sensitivity, what is acceptable small talk? Because you could really say the wrong thing and you think you're joking and you're just being sarcastic, whatever. What is an acceptable realm of small talk, and how should a writer behave?
Just like any other job that the writer might have had. What is an expectation if you worked in an office, or if you're a student in college? It's what you would do in these settings that you just have to hold a serious presentation of yourself. It's not a space to be acting so out of that frame, because there's an expectation that when you're in this kind of room is that they're taking a risk on you. When you're trying to get somebody to invest in you and there's money on the line, why don't you go in their shoes? If you were them, what kind of person would you want to risk a fortune on? and that should, establish how you behave. Is you just have to have empathy for them. And if you do, then, how you initially present yourself will be the right professional face.
Well, there's different cultures in different workplaces. I've worked in some where, nothing but the facts. Don't refer to anything that's not work related. Whereas there's others where people shared personal details of their life, and that was the norm. That was probably too far on the spectrum, but just knowing, like reading the room, like going in, because some people might have a little bit of more of a looser style, but you don't want to overstep that bound. And that's an easy line to cross, especially these days,
Well, I mean, this is most likely a new relationship. When I'm talking about if you don't know what their approach to their business is that you might not know them that well or know them at all. If they're a stranger, then more of a neutral approach makes sense, because you got the empathy that if this investor is going to finance your film, you could come at it with more of a baseline because you don't know them. And you don't have to perfectly match their energy, but you have to be respectful of what kind of dynamic they're going to get into if they're going to greenlight your movie. So I think the key is not leading with assumptions and just imagining what it would be like to be sitting down in the other chair and having to take a major risk on someone you don't know or barely know.
In the terms of this online pitch during the pandemic that we're referring to, was this an existing relationship, or did you start this did you reach out to this person during the pandemic?
I'd say that some parties had a relationship with the buyers, some didn't. It was a mix.